All right, we are here live for another exciting lunch and learn discussion. I hope everybody's enjoying their lunch right now, and really enjoying their Tuesday. I can't believe it's barely Tuesday, but it is Tuesday, and we are here for a lunch and learn. So my name is Jordan Moon, and I am the public relations coordinator for Savvy, and I'm here with some awesome Savvy coworkers here, and we are going to talk about what we would tell our younger self about blindness if we could go back and talk to our younger self. So, without further ado, let's get started on this great discussion. We'll just go around the room here, and I just want to ask you guys to start off. Introduce yourself and then describe briefly like your blindness journey, just so our listeners, or our viewers have a context of who you are. So, whoever wants to go first can go for it.
I can go first.
All right.
I'll jump in there. My name's Shannon Mandati, and I grew up in Phoenix. I grew up in Arizona, and I was first diagnosed when I was a kid. I described myself as visually impaired. So I was first diagnosed with they knew something was going on when I was about 3 years old. So blindness has been a part of my life for a long, long while. I'm not going to tell you exactly how old I am, but I'm much older than that. So I feel like I've had a pretty huge journey as far as being a little kid and not really, for my personal journey involved really kind of not understanding what it meant to be blind and embracing that in a positive way. So that was definitely a journey that was, through my teen years and my young adult years was really transformative for me.
Awesome. Let's see who wants to go next.
I'll go next. My name is Megan Delaney, and I was diagnosed with Stargardt's when I was about 10 years old. So, like Shannon, I always kind of considered myself for a long time just visually impaired. And I never really knew anybody. I grew up mostly in New Mexico, and I never really knew anybody else who had my same kind of eye condition. I either had met people along the way who were totally blind or had more usable vision than I did, but nobody who had the exact same eye condition as I did until I actually moved here to Arizona and started attending Savvy as a student. So yeah, it's been living with this for plus 30 years, I guess, at this point. Oh wait, no, that makes me too old. At least plus 20 years.
There's nothing wrong with that, Meg.
Excuse me.
So yeah.
She's experienced. All right. Awesome. Thank you, Megan. Who else wants to go?
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Jessica. Go ahead.
We'll fight you. My name is Jessica Rojas, and I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, which is where I currently live. And I was born blind. I have Leber's congenital amaurosis, so it's very rare. Well, as far as I know, not very many people have it. And so I was blind since birth. I went to public school. I spent a lot of time in performing arts and theater. And I didn't know anybody who was blind until probably I was about 16. That was the first time that I ever met anybody like myself, blind or visually impaired. So I guess just figuring out my place in this community and figuring out my journey to independence. For me, that kind of explains my journey, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you, Jessica. And last but certainly not least, Colin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Colin Wong, and I was born in Fresno, California. I lost my vision in high school when I was a junior, and my blindness journey took me to a lot of different places. And same with everyone else, I definitely was considered myself visually impaired when I first lost my vision. I was clinging on to whatever vision I had left, and it took me a long time to become proud of being blind. And I would say after my blindness journey took me to Louisiana Tech University and to Savvy in Arizona, I feel like I'm finally at a place where, I am proud to call myself blind and happy with where I'm at.
Awesome. So, as you guys watching this can tell, blindness is definitely a part of it's a journey. Getting to the point where you feel accepted and accepting of your blindness it's really a journey, and it doesn't happen overnight. And so, the goal of this conversation today is to let you know that you're not alone. So, if you are recently blind, or if you've been blind for a while and still kind of struggling with accepting it, hopefully these words will help you get to where you need to be at your life, where you understand that it's respectable to be blind. So, with that being said, we'll start with you, Shannon. This question, um, I know you touched on it, and all you guys briefly touched on it, but go into a little bit more detail. When you were younger, growing up, what was your view of blindness? At the time, what were you primarily thinking? The blind community was like, and what were the prospects for blind people? When you were growing up, like what came to mind when you thought about blindness when you were younger?
Sure. So much like I think it's Jessica who mentioned, I grew up really like not knowing anybody else who was blind. And so I grew up in a great family, but a family who was like, whoa, we don't know what to do with a blind kid, because that was a surprise for them. Nobody else in my family is blind. So I grew up being very concerned that I wasn't like everybody else. So at that point, as a really young person, that was sort of my biggest concern. I wanted to be like my siblings, my sisters, and I wanted to be like my friends, whatever that meant for me. So for me, blindness was something I did not embrace as a young person, because I didn't understand it. I didn't know anybody else. I didn't have any mentors. So the views that I got from people outside my family, I would have to say, unfortunately, were pretty negative. I also want to put out there this: we're kicking it old school. We're going back to the 80s. So this is a long while ago. And I feel like in school, unfortunately, I was one of those kids that, teachers said, oh, you have plenty of vision, so we're not going to teach you Braille. You don't need that, which is really sad and unfortunate. And that's an unfortunate thing that should never occur. And I didn't know any better to say, yes, I do want to learn Braille now. Yes, I do. I didn't understand that. And my family was so fantastic and wanted to advocate, and they did advocate in a lot of areas. Unfortunately, they didn't know better about that area either. But the one great part for me that I'm super grateful for is that my family held very high expectations for me. So even though my school didn't necessarily in a lot of ways, and I got some negative feedback from people at school and things like that, my family was like, well, we're not really sure what all you need to do to live independently, but we're just going to figure that out, aren't we? Because you're going to go to college and you're going to figure out your life. And so that was huge for me. I had that wonderful experience from them. But I was 16 also when I met another blind person who turned out to be a great mentor. And that was huge for me to be like, that was the point in my journey of like, oh my God, this person's so independent and awesome. And they're blind and they're doing everything non-visually and they're rocking it. And I want to do that too. So
That's awesome.
It's big for me.
Before our next person goes, we have a couple of people that make comments on Facebook. So Mike Smith, how are you doing? And Katie said that her staff learned a little bit about Savvy last week. So thank you for tuning in. We're very, very glad that you're watching. And Rodney Fletcher commented that he loves to wear blind. So
that's right.
We agree.
That's right, Rodney.
All right, cool. Thanks for that awesome answer, Shannon. Anybody else want to go follow that?
This is Megan. Kind of the same long as Shannon, like going to school and stuff. I was teachers were more like, you do have a lot of usable vision. We'll just blow everything up bigger for you, and we'll put you in the front of the classroom. And I got taught visually. Slowly, though, like some stuff was introduced, like Braille, but that was for me growing up when I first, like probably from 10 years old to maybe about 14, learning Braille was like a summer thing. And I was always the only person that was taking Braille, and I only went like maybe 3 times a week to learn Braille. But I never was, asked to ever use it during, you know, my actual classes and things like that. So I never actually learned it as probably I should have learned it to help me later on. But I did grow up with pretty much with a single mother who already kind of taught me just to be independent, even though, you know, I was blind. She never saw that as being, you know, a barrier to me being by myself or being independent, being able to take care of myself. Because, you know, I was interested in sports. She always told me, well, do it if you want to do it and you're able to do it, like, you know, go out and thrive for it and things like that. So, you know, I do remember though going to all those different types of specialists and seeing if they can fix you to see and things like that.
Yeah.
I remember that being a big part, especially when you first get diagnosed. What can we do for you to, you know, keep your sight?
Yeah, thanks for that. Megan, anything from Jessica or Colin?
Yeah, I can go next. I think similarly to Shannon, I went to school in the 90s, so I know I just aged myself, but that's okay. So for me it was
It's the best decade for my opinion.
I love the 90s. I started school. I actually went to a public school. My family all decided that was the best decision because, you know, I would be getting mainstream curriculum and it might provide better opportunities for me. But learning things like, you know, I didn't have any usable vision at all. So learning things like Braille were necessities. And it was a struggle to find somebody to teach me how to read Braille. I don't know if it's because it was a new thing in the school district or what. So I was very behind for the first few years of school until I finally found a really good Braille teacher, or somebody found one, I don't know. And I started learning, but it was a struggle for a while. And I think because I had such a tough time in the beginning, I really just wanted to be like everyone else. So I think for me growing up, my goal was to minimize my blindness. I knew that I was blind and that I had to accept it, but I didn't have to make it like a big deal. I could make jokes about it. I could, you know, be the cool blind girl that also was doing other stuff. And maybe people wouldn't notice it or talk about it or make a big deal about it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of, and then, yeah, I didn't meet another blind person until I was about 16. And that kind of changed my whole outlook. But yeah, for me, it was just, how do I make it so that it's not such a huge thing in my life, and so that I can be as normal, quote unquote, as possible.
Yeah.
I think like I definitely had the same, you know, I went to a lot of eye doctors, also went to a lot of prayer, you know, my family is very Catholic, so went to a lot of like churches and priests, all the things to try to, you know, get my sight back. But here we are. So yeah.
Well,
Thank you. Go for it, Colin.
definitely. So I was fortunate to have a good TVI in high school and a good O&M instructor. And they definitely pushed me to go to college. And I would say in college, that was when I really had like a big realization, because that's where I met some more O&M instructors who had very, 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 very low expectations. And so it was very hard, like coming from a place where expectations were a bit higher, going to a place where the expectations were drastically decreased. And you know, I experienced a lot of those low expectations at San Francisco State, and it, I felt like it really pushed me to really figure out what I wanted to do, because when I went to college, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. But when I saw the low expectations that the O&M instructors had in San Francisco, it really made me realize that there was a huge need for blindness professionals with high expectations who can push blind people to where they really need to be. And I think that journey through San Francisco really gave me a purpose, because before that, in college, I literally switched my major about 15 times trying to figure out what I really wanted to do. And so um, I felt like I was really stuck and had no idea what I wanted to do. And my expectations of blindness really grew as my my academic career progressed. And I really like Nick's what Nick Fletcher said in the Facebook comment, where he said that blindness is a good word. And I echo what everyone else said here, because everyone that used visually impaired use it in a past tense context. And I think as I progressed further and further, I realized what my true capabilities as a blind person was. And I really worked on making sure that those low expectations weren't holding me back. And the first time I met someone who was blind was my cousin who was blind. And so it was fortunate to know somebody who was successful as a blind person, but it was hard. Like when you're in the middle of going through your vision loss, sometimes you don't know whether those blind people who are successful are the exception or whether that is the possibility for everyone. And that's what I had to come to grips with when I was growing up.
That's super insightful from all of you. And Colin, what you were just saying really leads me to the next question. And that is, now that you guys have laid out what the expectations were, not only for you internally of blindness, or for a lot of people, visual impairment at the time when you were younger, not only were there low expectations for you, but there were also a lot of low expectations society-wide until you met that one blind person or you found that kind of motivation. What led you guys to shift? And Colin touched on it a little bit here, but I was wondering what led you guys to shift from those low expectations to being accepting of the word blind, and how have those views of blindness changed since you were younger?
Awesome.
And anybody can answer first. There.
Okay, I can jump in. I just don't want to bogart. Did you want to go first, Colin?
No, you could go first, Shannon.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think a lot of things changed for me. It was definitely a huge shift, not only meeting a blind mentor that was really influential, but also being 16. I was starting to figure out, well, not figure out who I was at 16, but I was starting on that path, starting to try to figure out my journey. And then when I went to college at ASU, go Sun Devils, it's a huge campus, and there was like no option of like, well, gee, I'm just not going to use my cane and I'm really going to pretend I'm not blind here. Like that was just out the window. Like I really got to ASU and I lived on campus and I was so excited about it. And I was just like, I realized quickly, like, nobody here cares what I'm up to. Nobody, like these people are all living in their lives and doing their own thing. And it was so just empowering to be like, maybe I need to stop caring what other people are thinking, because I want to get around this campus and do my thing. And to do that in an independent way, I need to use my cane and use it right. So that was a huge, huge shift for me. So, from then to now, a lot of life experiences have happened. I decided to go to graduate school in San Diego. And that was a huge deal because, of course, making the move, moving someplace I didn't know anybody. My family didn't really agree with that move. And that was a huge deal for me to be like, I want to do this because it's the right thing for me. And I need to figure out what it's like to live in another state and just go on and do my own thing and figure out a new bus system and figure out a new school. And so, for me, the shift has been it's been a journey for a long time. And I think that was sort of throughout that college time was when I was like, I'm so sick of trying to be something I'm not, or worry about how I should present. Like, I am blind. That is a part of me. And I'm proud of who I am as a person. So that's a part of who I am. So boom, I'm blind. I'm trying to like minimize that because I was spending all this energy doing that. And I wish I hadn't, but I did. And so, yeah, so now I have such a completely different view, and which I'm grateful for, but I also am grateful for the path because I had to, that was a lot of growing up I had to do.
That's a super awesome answer. Before we go to the next person, Mike Smith, agreed with Rodney and said he loves using the word blind too. So thanks for that. And anybody else who has a comment or a question, again, this is really designed to help our audience out. We all have gone through it, as you heard, and we know that there's people out there right now who are going through it. And so we just really want to make sure that we're able to answer any questions that you guys have. I guess we'll keep going around. Jessica, or sorry, Megan, and then Jessica.
Okay.
Well, that was the original circle, so we'll just keep going around.
I think mine's been a really long process of trying to get to the state of, being accepting myself as being blind. Since I did have quite a bit of vision for a long time, being able to actually see at 20/20 being little, and then losing it gradually, and still losing it gradually. It's been I think an acceptance process because of that. As Shanna said, I just wanted to fit in high school. You want to be with all I can see, and I can do, anything except, oops, I ran into that pole by accident. Things like that. Then when I went to ASU, that's where I kind of got more, exposure to successful blind people, the ones that I usually interacted with back home in New Mexico were very, very limited. Like maybe I met with them maybe once a year, if that. And then, so coming to ASU was like a big booster. But I was still in denial of how much I could not see, and didn't think, I was still quote unquote, blind. I'm still visually impaired. It wasn't until like a decade later when I actually came to Savvy that I finally kind of more accepted of being, I'm not visually impaired, I'm actually, blind. I do need to use the cane and go places, and not have to rely on family taking me places. And that process is still happening now because I still am losing vision, but, I have belief in myself that I don't need to fit in. I just need to be myself. I have had all those skills of, non-visual techniques, even before coming to Savvy and getting, fine-tuning my, non-visual techniques. I never saw it as that. It was just, I cooked without looking at stuff, and that's just the way I did it. But now being able to say that, yeah, I am blind, it is empowering to think of myself that way because, I'm not trying to hide, a part of me anymore.
That's beautiful. That's awesome. Jessica.
Okay. So for me, when I was 16, it was a very pivotal moment in my life because my grandfather had just passed away, and he was a huge support system for me, just as a kid and just in general. He kind of always knew that, I would, that I was smart and that I could do whatever I wanted to do and that I would figure it out. And then he was gone and I didn't. I mean, my family always believed in me, but he was so always there. And so I was very angry and rebellious, I guess. And so when I met, when I had my first experience with blind people at 16, it was a huge moment for me where I started to kind of think like, maybe there are other things that I need to be doing for myself, to start my journey to independence. And then so after that, I went to college. I graduated high school. I went to college at Pima, which is a community college here in Tucson. And I thought, okay, like this is my moment. This is going to be great. And I failed miserably. I realized my O&M skills were not as great as they should be. I did not have enough technology I didn't know enough about technology, and it was just a rough time. So then I found a traveling group that does performing arts, and they also do community service activities. So I decided, like, you know what, this is a great way for me to find my independence, to figure out who I am as a person. And so I traveled for a few years through the US and through Europe and through Asia and Mexico. And it was a huge deal for me. I learned a lot about the world and about myself and about how other people see blind people, and how to deal with, people's, misconceptions. So that was a huge moment. And then when I came back, it was finally time for me to figure out what I was going to do with my life. So I decided that I needed to go back into VR. I needed to get back into school. And by then the programs had changed and I had to go through comprehensive training. And I was like, you know what, that's cool. Like, I'm pretty independent. I just travel the world. And so I'm about it, I'm cool like that. But I guess, I'll fake it till I make it. And that turned out to be a complete opposite of what I thought it was going to be. I learned so much, and I learned so many things that I needed to know in order to be successful. So I'm really grateful that I was able to do that. And so that's kind of where I found the National Federation of the Blind, which was this huge community of blind people that I didn't even know existed. And now it's just cool to know, like, there are other people out there who are probably dealing with a lot of the same things, especially young people, because it's such a crazy world right now that we live in, and there's so much going on. And so I'm really grateful that I was plugged into that community. And now, I feel like I have it together, but I'm still learning and I'm still growing. And I accept who I am, and I'm proud to be who I am, with all of the facets and things that come along with that. And I'm happy to be in a position where I can help others to figure that out as well. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Jessica. And it really, literally for you was a journey. So that's
it's still a journey. But yeah, literally.
Yeah, literally. Awesome. What's up, Colin? What do you think?
Yeah, as everyone has talked about, their blindness journey is just a progression. And I'm definitely along the same boat. I'm embarrassed about how I felt about blindness when I was growing up. And I think the most important thing for me was having a place where I fit in and understanding the people who have done it before. I think that's the great thing about blindness. And like Jessica said about the National Federation of the Blind, is being connected to people who have made that same journey before. Right now I'm a O&M instructor, but it was good to know that I'm not the first blind O&M instructor, and being able to turn towards those resources for help when I'm struggling with something professionally. And a lot of times as blind people, we don't have a lot of role models that we can look up to, especially when we first lose our vision, because societal's views on blindness is very negative, and portrayals of blind people on TV or movies are not very accurate. So I know the biggest shift was when I was able to find somebody that I can really connect with on a deeper level and really share those blindness experiences that they were able to make it through. And I think just having that sense of understanding really makes it easier to progress through those negative emotions of blindness. When I first lost my vision, it felt like I lost everything I had in the world, because vision is such a dominant sense, and that's what we're taught growing up, that is the most important sense. But when I've met a successful blind person outside of my family, meeting people who more than one successful blind person, just meeting a community of successful blind people, understanding that non-visual skills exist and that sight doesn't have to be the most dominant sense, it really gave me the sense of freedom and understanding that I could really pursue whatever I wanted in this world. And I think, to me, nothing is more impactful than that sense of community and understanding that exists.
Very, very true statement. I think that you all have hit on that in some form, the importance of a positive blind role model. And none of us would be where we are today if we didn't have a person or people that we were able to connect with or look up to say, okay, like, there is a such thing as positive blind role models, and blindness didn't stop these people, so it doesn't have to stop us. And so the fact that all you guys brought that up in some form lets us know that, we all feel like the one advice that we would give you all is connect with someone if you are going through a struggle right now, connect with someone you know who's blind. And if you don't know anybody who's blind, reach out to us on our Facebook page right here. We'll definitely get you connected to some people, because it is very important, as everybody else said. And one of the follow questions I have, and we'll kind of go around the room again, starting with Shannon, is now that we have established, that we are content with ourselves, blindness is a part of who we are. We kind of are embarrassed about what we used to think about blindness. We got that out the way. But we all know here that there are still some difficulties and some frustrations that may come up because of blindness. So when those happen, what is the thing that you guys do to remain positive about it, to not revert back to those old ways of thinking about blindness when you were younger?
That's such a great question. I mean, and you're totally right. Obviously, challenges and frustrations do come up. But I think, for me, it's like, that's not specific to blindness, right? Certainly that's maybe some things connected to blindness, but there are just all kinds of life things that come up. So I think with anything, I'm a big fan of, like, I have a counselor heart, right? So I go back to, like, okay, experience whatever emotion you're having. If you feel frustrated about something, take a second. It's okay. It's all right. You're human. Be frustrated for a second and be like, that is not cool. Grr, whatever. Get it out of your system. But really, we need to move on, because it's, I don't know, not to be super cheesy, but like, don't sweat the small stuff, like, just that idea of like, okay, this is not something that's stopping me from moving forward in the world. And maybe there's a big thing. Maybe there's a big frustrating thing around blindness. Maybe you really feel like you're being discriminated against, or something was really not okay. So there might be something bigger where you really have to go, okay, I'm going to be frustrated, and then I'm going to move forward and figure out how to appropriately advocate. Or maybe it's something so small that it's just like, I'm really frustrated today because whatever, so fill in the blank, some little thing. It's okay to feel that, but it's also great to be like, all right, can we just focus on gratitude? Like, I've got a pretty great life. So you know what? Frustrations come up. It's all good. But, going back, if something big happens, big meaning, okay, some injustice has really occurred. I think it's important to feel those feelings and then move forward so you can advocate. I can't personally come from a place of anger when I'm looking at advocating. I really need to, it's okay to be like, this is not okay, but I need to be in a good place to hopefully make some really positive, educated choices to move forward and hopefully advocate for some positive change.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. Take a step back, kind of process it a little bit, figure out how we can kind of shape the situation into a learning and a experience to advocate. So that's beautiful advice. What about you, Megan?
Yeah, it is kind of taking a step back, because all of us, no matter if we're blind or not, we're all going to get frustrated at some point about something in our lives. But it's also those people who kind of still put you in the, stereotypical type of being blind, being able to talk with those people, answer some of the crazy questions they might have, when they're looking at you on your iPhone, when you're on your iPhone and it's blacked out, they're like, how do you do that? What are you doing? Like, there's nothing on the screen, being able to sometimes be in those moments and talk to people, because people are naturally curious. So, you can't go into it and being like, well, you should just know, or, things like that. But, do things like that do sometimes get tiring, but being able to have those conversations along the way, though, does help.
Awesome. What about you, Jessica?
I think for me, I definitely do a lot of like inner dialoguing. Like, I'll just be like, oh my God, just get over yourself, like do it. And sometimes it's helpful.
It's a better word, pep talking, right?
Pep talking, yeah. Like, get your stuff together, Jess. It's fine. But but I think also I do a lot of writing. So I think for me, taking a step back means maybe because what happens is if I don't do something creative to like let go of that frustration, it ends up bottling up and then I just explode. And it's not always fun. So I definitely have a journal where I write down everything that happens in my life that I feel like I need to just let go. And then when I write it down, I just, you know, kind of take a deep breath and I say, okay, now what am I going to do? So how am I going to fix the situation? And sometimes that means that, you know, maybe I don't know how I'm going to fix it. And I need to ask somebody who might, you know, somebody who might know more than I do. And that's okay. And just knowing that I don't always need to know everything and that it's okay to, you know, ask for help and to, you know, find that support system. And I think also, like, I love educating people. So I don't mind having conversations, and I don't mind admitting when I need, you know, a little bit extra help or support in a certain situation. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Talking and actually understanding how you're feeling, whether that's writing it down like you were saying, or being able to, when you do talk about blindness to other people, I think it does help you um, release that confidence in yourself. Like, wow, I really do think of blindness in a cool way, like in a different way. So, and I think that can come out when you start talking to people about blindness. What do you think, Colin?
I would say to me, the important thing that I find is finding a purpose. And I think when I found a purpose in what I'm doing in my life, then it makes it a lot easier to handle everything else that are external. And I try to make sure that whatever's within my control, I try to control it. And whatever isn't, then I just have to live within that. And the amount of vision that I have is not something that I can control, but the amount of effort I put into my career or my personal life is something that I can control. So I make sure to find passion in both of those things. And what I have found is at the end of the day, when I put all my passion and purpose into my professional and personal life, I don't have a lot of time to really stress out about how much vision I have left. And so I really try to keep myself busy. And obviously there are those times when there's going to be those down times, and I really try to make sure I reflect about how far I've come as a person. And I think a lot of it, you know, I have to be grateful for the vision loss that I have had, because a lot of without the blindness that I have right now, you know, the wonderful people in this call I would never have met. I wouldn't have come to Savvy. I wouldn't have gone through the journey that I have. So I think it's having that purpose in life and being able to reflect on all the positive things that have happened to me because of what I have gone through. And I think it's interesting because I actually just finished a book called The Survivors Club, and it talks about all the things that people have survived and what separates survivors from, you know, people who don't. And there's so many amazing stories about people who have survived life-threatening situations. And to me, it really put me into perspective. At the end of the day, blindness is just a characteristic, and you know, people go through a lot worse things on a daily basis, such as cancer or being lost in the wilderness, or everyday things that to me put into perspective that, you know, blindness can be something that I can focus really negatively on, or something that I can use as a positive. And I find that the more positive I am about my blindness, the more positive other people are around me as well. Because it's very easy for the outside world to see that blind people are a population to pity. But I think when we take away that pitying factor, then it makes them understand that blindness doesn't have to be seen as a negative thing. And I think one by one, like Jessica says, the more that we educate, the more that people see blindness as not a negative factor, then the easier it is for people who are blind to live out in society.
And that's a brilliant answer on multiple levels. And I think it really ties all four of these answers together. And one of the things that you hit on, Colin, was give yourself some purpose, right? If you give yourself purpose, if you feel like your life has meaning and what you're doing has, you know, purpose, and you will not even have time, like Colin said, to remember that you're blind. Like, you'll obviously know that you're blind, but you won't have time to pity over it because you'll be so focused on living out your dream. And so that would, like Colin was saying, lead to you having a positive view on it, because you're able to proceed through life despite your blindness. And so I think that really did a nice job of tying all four answers together. That's an awesome answer. I have two final questions for you guys. This has been an awesome discussion. Again, if you guys have any points that you viewers you were watching, please put it in the chat. We will also put contact information for us here in the chat, so you could reach out to us if you have any questions as well. Let's see. For the viewers who are watching, I want to ask you guys, what would be some advice that you would give someone who is first losing their vision and who might be kind of at that beginning stage where they're like looking at you guys going, well, that's nice, but I just don't see myself there. What would you tell them?
I would absolutely try to advise that they get connected. So somebody mentioned earlier, National Federation of the Blind. That is an awesome advocacy consumer group. It's fantastic. And just, there's so many resources. If you're in Arizona, then Savvy Services for the Blind is a fantastic place to reach out, because even if you're, depending on where you're at in your journey, maybe you're not at a place where you're ready to do services. Maybe you just don't even know what you need. Connecting with Savvy and connecting with National Federation of the Blind, there at least you're going to have access to people who can help and give you resources to figure out what it is that you're looking for. I've gotten phone calls, which I really appreciate. I've gotten phone calls from people in the community that just said, I am blind. I don't know what to do. I don't even know what to ask you. And that's okay. Like, I've appreciated that, to say, okay, I'm really glad you called. Let's just talk. Let me introduce myself. Let's just talk, to kind of figure out. Sometimes we're all human, and new experiences can be overwhelming. So I think just reaching out, it doesn't mean you're committing. If you connect with someone, it doesn't mean you're forever committing to join their organization or something, but just reach out, because we're a fairly small community, right? So like Colin mentioned, I'm really grateful for all my awesome connections in the blind community, but I'm aware that I had none of those for the first 16 years of my life, right? So I think connecting with people is a fantastic place to start to figure out what's best for you.
Connecting, very important. And if you're interested in learning more about the NFB of Arizona, the NFB of Arizona does have a state convention coming up, which is September 10th through the 12th. You can find more information about it on az.nfb.org. And it is a perfect opportunity for those people out there who are just not sure where to begin, like Shannon was saying. And you can also find the NFB on Arizona on Facebook. Just search for Blind Arizona. So that's awesome advice. Thank you for that, Shannon. What about you, Megan?
Sorry, it's kind of loud over here. I'm working from the dining room, and the kitchen's right next to me. So,
lunch and learn time, of course.
I guess my advice is still too, like, you're not in it alone. Like Shannon's saying, get connected. Even all of us at some point sometimes still have those up and down feelings, but the important thing though is not to stay in there. You can take baby steps. Baby steps can include, figuring out how to use an iPhone with voiceover, or, going to the movies when you can go to the movies, doing the audio description for movies. Sometimes those little small steps help you get you out of your kind of woe's me kind of, situations. But being able to connect, even if it's one person or 100 people or a couple of thousand blind people, it does help. It goes a long way.
That's awesome. Before we go to Jessica, Ashley, my wife, is asking what are some of my answers to this. And honestly, I would just agree with the majority of what everybody's saying. I couldn't really offer anything else except for to say kind of what Megan just alluded to, take that step, get out there. You might not have the skills, you might not have the confidence, but what you do have the ability to control is your mind frame. And I think taking that first step is very important. Taking that first step can mean a lot of different things, right? It can mean getting out there and seeing a movie like Megan was saying, teaching yourself the iPhone, or doing what Shannon was saying. Taking that step could just mean giving somebody a call. If there's something that somebody once said, if something makes you nervous and antsy, it's probably a good thing, right? Because that means that you probably should do it. So if you have that feeling in your stomach where it's like these words that we're saying right now are hitting home, feel free to take our advice and take that first step. So let's see, we have another comment here from Doug Turner, who said the advice that he would give is to don't waste any time and basically get connected with Voc Rehab here. If you are blind in Arizona, really in any state, you have a vocational rehab system, and they can get you connected to a blindness training center like Savvy to get you those skills and to help you find work to get that purpose like Colin was talking about. So, that's another step, right? Get connected. I'm reading another comment from Ashley, who says, I was your blind role model, right, Jordan? My wife. And Ashley, I love you. You are always my role model. You're everybody.
That's a good answer, Jordan.
All right. So, Jessica, what would you say?
Well, I think similarly to what everybody else is saying, it's really important to be connected, to find resources, to find people you can, ask questions of, or even people to help be your mentor, and definitely hook up with Voc Rehab if you haven't, because it's such a good opportunity, and take advantage of all the opportunities that you are presented with. But I think one important thing to remember is that just because, you're blind doesn't mean it's going to be the end of the world. Obviously, we're all here, we're all living our lives, and we're doing it because we were lucky and we, had those people supporting us. And so just know that those people are around you. We are here, and, it's okay to be, upset and feel these emotions, but you also have to, live your life, and there's no reason why you can't live your life the way you want to.
Absolutely. Live the life you want is what the NFB says. So that's very true. What about you, Colin?
Yeah, just echoing what Jessica says, whatever emotion that you're going through when you lose your vision, whether it's anger, depression, or any infinite amount of other emotions that you're feeling, it's okay. And I guarantee you that somebody didn't just wake up blind and just accept it and be happy about it. So those negative emotions that you're going through, whether it's going through a sense of loss, and it's okay to work past those emotions. And I would say the most significant factor that I think that helps people get over their blindness is time. And that time might be different for everybody. Some people take a lot less time to get comfortable with their blindness, and some people take a lot longer. But at the end of the day, everyone's blindness journey is theirs, and it's individual to them. So I would say don't, find positive blind role models, but use those as positive factors. Don't ever feel negative that you're not reaching those expectations yet. As long as you keep working towards it, eventually you'll get there, and that time will come. And, just understand that those emotions are the same emotions that every blind person has gone through before. And any blind person is it just find that blind person who's gone through it and is willing to be that support, and don't beat yourself up over those emotions. Just understand that whatever you're going through, it's okay to be going through those emotions.
Awesome. Yeah, it is okay. That's the key, right? Understanding that it's okay. And Colin did make a great point as well when he said, people didn't just get out of bed when they lost their vision and go, I'm blind, that's okay, right? So it is a process, and being in tune with how you're feeling is a great way for you to kind of overcome that and get connected, like everybody else was saying. All right, guys, to wrap this up, we are going to ask the question, which was the topic of this Lunch and Learn. So if you can give your younger self advice about blindness, or even, outside of blindness, if you could talk to your younger self about how you kind of perceived yourself and your prospect. A sentence or two, what would you guys say? Let's go around and start with Shannon and we'll make our way around.
Ooh, okay. I would say overall, trust your instincts because you're smart and you know what you need to do deep down. So please stop trying to be like everybody else because the myth of the world is there is no everybody else. Everybody else is dealing with their own stuff. So just really try to be cool with who you are.
Great advice. What about you, Megan?
I guess it would be, don't be afraid of the unknown. Don't, it doesn't matter what everybody else thinks, like Shannon said. You're going to find out that you're your own person and you're not, living your life for somebody else. You're living your life for yourself.
Awesome. What about you, Jessica?
I think I would say you have the capability to choose which characteristics and what defines you as a person, and just make that choice for yourself and don't let other people influence those decisions for you, and don't be afraid to be who you really are.
And Colin?
I would say, stay humble and be open-minded to whatever somebody has to offer you, and everyone has a learning opportunity for you, and sit down and have a conversation with somebody and see what you can absorb from them.
Thank you guys very much for this great conversation. I learned a lot from you guys. I learned a lot from the comments. This is when we thought about the idea of Lunch and Learn, conversations like this, interaction like this is what we were thinking about. So thank you to our panel here. You guys all were fantastic. I know you helped somebody out there, and thank you to everybody watching. We hope it really was beneficial for you, and we will leave information in the chat where we'll leave everybody's email here who you can reach out to. So please continue to comment, and thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you on Thursday for another Lunch and Learn. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.